Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Supergirl. A great season finale. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I really appreciate that we obviously get that little quick run through of kind of like, okay, so how did we get to Lex beating, obviously, Red Daughter and everything? And it's so interesting. Once again, just showing you kind of how evil Lex is. It's like, oh, he's testing out his gauntlet and everything, and he ends up incinerating one of his own people. It's like, somebody go ahead and sweep that up. Even that moment where, like, Eve is like, oh, I'm so glad to be a part of this and everything, and kisses him, and you almost see him, he has like an almost non-human response where he's just kind of like a, I guess for him it's just kind of like, well, there's nothing like that between us, but hey, I'm glad that you feel that way, you know? You're just kind of, what he says it later on, you're just kind of a henchman to me, you know? So that's kind of that situation. But it's also interesting hearing the conversation between him and the president. You know, it turns out he'd actually been helping this, like, once again showing you how long Lex manipulates situation. It's like back when he was a senator, he's the one that set it up so that he got on Marsden's ballot. So that's why I'm kind of like, okay, so he probably didn't exactly plan it out for this particular moment, but it's like, hey, it's always nice to have a potential president in your pocket. But it's like, that was something set up a long time ago that now you're just paying it off now, because it's like, oh, I got rid of Marsden, and now because you are already in my pocket, you're even more in my pocket to do what I need you to do. Because as I figured as much, it's like, oh, the president's helping, because it's like, oh yeah, I'll be one of the presidents that help, you know, during a great crisis. I mean, you literally setting up your own country to be attacked just so you come off as being a hero. Same thing for Lex. It actually kind of sucks to the people of Kaznia never knowing, you know, the truth about everything. It's also sad too because, like, Red Daughter never finds out about the Mikhail situation. I was wondering if that was going to be the case, but I guess it's just kind of a, no, Otis kind of handled that on his own, everything. Also love it later on too, because it's like, oh, Otis is dead, yeah, let's take advantage of that situation. It's like, we're not going to bother trying to bring him back. In fact, every crime that Lex has ever been accused of, he has taken credit for. So it's like, hey, Lex is getting pardoned by the president. It's super sad too because, you know, as I figured the whole situation went down, like, I figured it went one of two ways, potentially the Mikhail thing, or she went to Lex, and it's like, well, what's happening? Like, I was supposed to get the signal, I was supposed to lead the army. It's like, oh, you played your part. And she's like, you lied to me. He's like, well, at the end of the day, I'm proud to be an American, and knocks her out. Didn't kill her because he was planning to use her for the laser and everything like that. I love to, once again, showing you who Lex is. His obsession will not stop, because obviously his plan is to kind of use this whole situation as making, like, oh, we're going to make batteries, essentially alien powered batteries, and we're going to basically sell them to people and stuff like that. It's like, that's vile. Yes, vile, but viable. And it's also interesting because it's like, oh yeah, I also want to take some of that energy and I'm going to point it at Argo, and I'm going to kill Superman. It's like, even after all of this, all your grand plans, here you are, hero of the United States of America, and you still hate Superman that much. You're like, he has to die. I want him to burn. Because even Eve is like, you can't, are you serious? Because I was like, oh, I thought she had some reservations about it. I was like, why are you having a reservation now? It's like, no, you're literally going to use like half our resources for these, like, power and stuff. Like, this is what we had planned. You're literally going to use half our reserve trying to kill Superman. It's like, no, he has to die. It's like, wow. It's almost like a big baby moment. It's like, no, I hate him. He has to die. It's like, it's so interesting because he seems so calm, cool, and collected. But when it comes to Superman, he turns into a complete, utter lunatic. He loses his faculties because that's because all he can see is red, you know? And I think it's so interesting. Because that also, it kind of points to what he was saying to the Red Daughter. I thought was kind of interesting, where she was basically like, you know, he was like, the fact is, you should have figured it out by now, because it's like, for one, I hate Kryptonians. If you looked up anything about that, you would have figured I hate Kryptonians. And what are you? A Kryptonian, you know? And it's so sad. Legitimately, you feel bad for the Red Daughter because she was just raised in this situation. She was raised to believe Lex and everything, and he just used her. Especially because for her, it's like, oh, the country she's come to love and represent and want to protect, Kaznia, is also like that. That's, you know, it's the same parallels as Supergirl. Like, she fights to protect the U.S. just like the Red Daughter fought to protect Kaznia. And once again, it's just sad because she also never knew the truth that Mikhail, like, one of the leading things that ended up pushing her down this path is like, no, he's still alive and everything, but she never got to find out. What I also love too is that he invites both his sister and his mother there, because he's basically replaced Lockwood as the Secretary of Alien Affairs or whatever. And, you know, Lena's like, okay, so why are you bringing us here? Because he's like, basically, if I wanted to kill you guys, I would have killed you before now. And Lillian's like, no, look at us, like, we're all together and stuff. Because Lex is like, oh, I did this for us. Because for him, it's like, look, only in America can 3 Luthers be in the White House. He's even saying, like, I basically cleared the Luthor name by getting rid of all my crimes. And I guess he got rid of Lillian's crimes too. The fact that she's kind of running around free. Because that was never something that was really answered, because later on in the episode, she just disappears. So it's like, she's probably running around free as a bird. So that's still something potentially. So I'm thinking he cleared her name too, because this way the Luthers are free of everything. But also he made it so that their name will kind of go down in legacy because of what he's crafting with these aliens being used to charge these batteries. But also just like the procedure of like, oh yeah, here we are in the White House type of situation. So I love it though. Like he ends up, I forgot what it was exactly, but he made a quote at something, and his mom, Lillian, was like, try not to quote Hitler in public, dear. I'm like, what? I was like, I had to pause it. I was like, you quoting Hitler? Really? I knew you were a fanatic, but to go Hitler? To be fair, when you actually look at what Lex is trying to do, it's like, yeah, he's definitely on some Hitler stuff. I mean, he is trying to kill all the remaining Kryptonians, especially now that he knows they're in Argo. Obviously, his main target's Superman, but he doesn't want to take the chance there's going to be another Superman out there of any other Kryptonians, so blend and wipe them all out too. It's like, Jesus, obviously doing everything that he's doing with aliens, turning them into bad. It's like, dude, you can definitely see the comparison and stuff like that. I do love it that Lillian's like, of course I'm not really siding with it. I guess it's kind of the situation of, well, you know that your son planned on, killing you, so it kind of changes your tune about him. Sadly, Lex already knew about her trying to poison him, so it's like, yeah, it's the same. And it's like, oh, you try to poison me with radiation too. It's like, of course, that's definitely your style, which I'm assuming that, because I don't know Lex's, like, because usually I don't know why typically he turns bald and everything, never is able to grow his hair back. I'm assuming it has to be a radiation thing, but obviously different continuities have different things, because like for Smallville, it was like the kryptonite landing on Earth, like he, all that stuff raining down on Smallville. He happened to be him and his dad happened to be in the area at the time, so there's that. But I'm sure in the comic books maybe it's a radiation thing. It almost seems like it's probably his mom, the way he kind of phrases it like that. It seems like she's the reason why he's kind of the way he is, bald and everything, like never being able to grow his hair back. So it seems like, because he makes even a point of it later on of being like, you with your cape and your good hair. It's like, oh yeah, there's a small part of you that like is kind of pissed about that Kryptonian gene of just like, look at that amazing hair. Superman's got great hair. Supergirl's got great hair. Someone's balding it, well, not just balding, permanently bald. Of course, it's going to piss you off a little bit. It's just kind of funny to me. It's like that somewhere on the inside there is that part of him that is jaded about that, So it just gives him extra reason to hate Kryptonians, in particular Superman and Supergirl. But I just thought that was kind of fascinating when he break that down. Also, the fact that his mom was willing to do it, and even Lena was like, oh, good on you for trying to do that, Mom. But he saw through that situation, because I love her being like, he'd literally be dead by now if he wasn't literally talking as much as he is right now. He would actually have taken a sip and be dead by now. So there's a lot of other interesting things to kind of break down. Obviously, like Ben injecting himself even more, and he's trying to, he's going after Lex, but it's like, oh yeah, Supergirl, Alex, and Jimmy are there in front of him, so it's like, why not take you all out at the same time too? Which, that was an interesting situation. Even with his newfound powers and stuff like that, he still ended up getting beat, him and his men. Sadly, the situation ended with Jimmy, because he ended up taking a cure, but it kind of had like a bounce back to it because his eyes messed up. Now, whether that's permanent, I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting, because obviously at the end he's wearing an eye patch and everything. So we'll see if that ends up being like a permanent damage, or whether it's just kind of temporary in the long run. But I was curious to see where Ben's story was going to take it, because I figured at the end he was going to go full-blown monster because of the hair now, but it's like, no, he was saved in the end. I mean, because luckily they needed to save him and Jimmy, because, Jimmy was starting to die from it too. But you have Supergirl taking on Lex. I love him being like, how are you still alive? And she's like, easy. I'm Supergirl, I'm sure that wasn't exactly what she said, but still I like that, being like, oh, I'm Supergirl. And he's just like, you and your cousin, the fact of the matter is you just always come back no matter how much I think I've beaten you down. And like, he tries to hit her with a kryptonite beam, but she has her, that other suit on, which I love that. It's so sad that that's only like a very sporadic thing throughout the season. I mean, to be fair, like, why would it be a constant thing? I don't know. It's cool from a like body armor type of point of view, but at the same time I'm like, well, to be fair, like if she wears that, we don't get to like admired the the traditional Supergirl suit. So it's like, it has its drawbacks. I think there's a part of me that's like, oh, I'd love it if it had a cape, but it's like, nah, it's fine without the cape. It's just me. I also love like the almost unnecessary like dodges of kind of like almost like there's certain angles of the dodging that almost seem like a break dance, the way she's kind of like bouncing, like pushing herself off the ground, like kind of obviously like levitating and dodging and even flipping to avoid the energy blast. But sadly, when the time came, her suit's kind of wearing down because it's so much kryptonite. But when it's all said and done, the Red Daughter takes the blow for her, and it's like, dude, that's got to suck. Because it's like, there's a part of you watching, it's like, it's got to be weird seeing yourself die in your own arms. But also the fact is, because she sees it's like, oh, I understand why you did what you did. You were just manipulated by, Lex. The fact is, you were trying to protect your country, the people you cared about, just like I was. So, you can understand the sympathy behind that. And it's like, my Alex is nothing like your Alex. And it's just like, it's sad her story played out that way. I figured it might have played out like that. That's why I was kind of surprised at the beginning. I was like, oh, she's still alive. He just knocked her out, because it's like, well, he can't outright kill her, because it's like, well, she's a good energy source. It's also interesting too, because Kara brought up something earlier in this episode I thought was kind of interesting. It's like, well, Lex probably didn't have enough confidence in himself, because he sent the Red Daughter to come kill Kara rather than trying to do it himself, even though he set up that whole situation, because he knew there was going to be a chance that because to be fair, like, she has a little more resistance to the kryptonite, because she's dealt with it all her life, whereas the Red Daughter hasn't. She's dealt with it and trained with it, sure, but not to the extent that, once again, Kara has come across of it. So, but it was pretty badass too, like the Harrenhal from, Red Daughter. It's sad to see her kind of dissipate, and then she becomes one with Kara, and Kara's eyes are kind of purple. I was like, yo, it'd be dope if that was a permanent supercharge, but it does seem like that probably went away. But like, it was kind of nice, because for a while her eyes were glowing purple as well from it, but it was probably like a temporary buff. I like to think that, they kind of became whole again, and that, like, I guess you could make the argument maybe that was like a part of Kara went off with the Red Daughter, but now has come back. Obviously, she's whole again. Luckily, she's able to take down Lex, and I love that he's hiding in the air in his suit, about to break apart, but Kara catches him and is like, let me save you. But for him, it's like, let you save me? Saved by a Kryptonian? Hell no. And I was like, the moment the suit crashed and burned, I was like, he wasn't inside. He somehow managed to get away. He's like, oh, he did. He teleported away, which was like, right, because you still have superpowers, and immediately gets taken down by Lena, because she takes away his powers. And he's like, fine, sis. Stop pointing the gun at me. We both know you're not going to bang, bang. Not only did she pull the trigger once, she pulled it twice. And even Lex is like impressed by her, but he's like, the fact of the matter is, with me going, there'll be no one there to seek your that, you'll try to validate yourself to. At the end of the day, I was kind of the only one you had in your corner. Now you have no one, because he drops a bomb on her about Kara. I knew it was going to come out. I was just kind of expecting him to do it sooner. The fact is, Lena, and their mom were in the same room. That's kind of when I expect him to, like, oh, you do know that your best friend, and it's like, nope. I was like, man, that's so fascinating. And it's like, that's how Lena learned it, because it was like Lex's final middle finger to her, because it's like, oh, at least I die not being a fool, because it was right in front of your eyes the entire time and you couldn't see it. And it's like, oh, mom lied to you about it. Jimmy, Alex, everyone you considered a friend lied to you about it. So now that you know that they're all liars, they're all laughing behind your back about this situation, now you have no one, because you can't, because Lena already had a hard time trusting people, and now that this is, I think it would have happened regardless. If Kara had told her sooner, I think it wouldn't have made a difference. I think Lena still would have been hurt. But what makes it hurt even more, that Lex, of all people, is the one who tells her. Literally, his dying words to her is that. And it's like, that's definitely going to rock their relationship. I'll cut back to that soon enough. But I do love, obviously, everything going on with Brainy, because he's trying to, I love that whole thing of, oh yeah, I'm calculating things. And yes, Dreamer should be reaching us now. Okay, cool. Oh, astral projecting doesn't work like that. They can't see her. She's like, and literally at the same time, Alex and Nia are like, well, then what good is this? And she turns around, she's like, thank you. Even though Alex can't see her, it's like, thank you for making such a great point. And it's like, oh yeah, he breathes on the glass and has her right, Shelby Island is where they're being held and everything. So, I do love that, like, obviously, when he shows up there later on, she kind of attacks him. She's like, that's for kind of abandoning us. And I like that moment of, like, okay, we need to overpower the laser. John, at first, was like, I loved for him, it's like, I have to do this because the last time I ran away and millions of my people died. I won't run away and let another home, suffer because of me running away. Even though, like, you have, the very calculated, Brainy being like, oh, it's not going to work, you're just going to kill yourself. But Nia ends up joining with him, and he's like, it kind of, like, seeing her kind of struggling, that she could potentially die or get hurt from this, it kind of short circuits him in a sense of kind of snapping him back into who he, because it's like, you're being irrational, like, they're not thinking with their heads, they're thinking with their hearts, and it's like, it's irrational, and his brain can't compensate, so he ends up shifting back, and he's like, I'm sorry, you can do this. He's like, you're fantastic, Nia, that's why I love you. And it's like, boom, and then she's looking at him, and he's looking at her, and it's like, he finally said it. It's because he would have said it last episode if he had the chance, though, but still. Luckily, when it all kind of has a happy ending at the end of it all in that regard. I like the aspect of George being the one that's kind of like an activist of being like, we need to bring everyone together. He's like, coming from my perspective, he's seen what that hate looks like, and the sad thing is his dad's in prison looking at this being like, damn, I'm curious what that means for Lockwood. Is his position going to change now that he sees that his son sticking up for both sides? Because his dad's hate for aliens destroyed their family. It literally led to their his mom getting killed, So I'm curious to see what that means for Ben. Like, obviously in prison, like, what that could potentially mean for him. But it's nice to see, obviously at the end of the day, like, George, because George being kind of the next generation in that family, not letting his hate consume him, because it was hate from his grandfather that passed on to his dad, but he's not, like, he almost let it control him, but he's like, no, you could tell that he's probably with his friend who potentially might be an alien, that might be the same friend, maybe it's not. I like to potentially think it is, that friend he's with when he gets, Kara's, expose on, Lex and everything, because I love that Lex is like, oh yeah, they'll never find out that this is the way things are. And while he's giving his speech monologue, hard cutting back to like Kara's expose, like I said, going across different people's phones and everything. So I thought that was pretty dope. It is interesting when it's all said and done, though, that when Lena shows up at the party later on, she doesn't say anything to Kara. I was actually kind of surprised. I thought we were going to have a big blowout and everything. It's like, no, she's keeping that inside. And the sad thing is, Kara wanted to tell her that night, but Alex is like, tell her some other night. Like, things are good right now. Like, everything's kind of settled down at the very least. This way, give her some time, to kind of enjoy it and tell her some other day. And it's like, if Kara had told her that night, would it have made a difference? I don't know. Like, Lex's words had already infected her. So, and it's the sad thing is, you always knew, like, I always knew it was going to sadly come to this, because what makes it worse about this situation, because Lena's going to look at it as a betrayal, which you could make the argument it was, but because for her it's like, not only was I the only one that didn't know amongst our friend group, the man I love knew and never told me, but at the same time it's like, well, that's not his secret to tell. That that was Kara's and it was her, and it's like, it's all about protecting the people you love. But obviously, because she always had her conflicted feelings with Supergirl after last season, so now finding out they're the same person, because it's like, oh, once again, it's that conversation. They're like, oh, you were laughing behind my back, weren't you? Me up here pouring out my heart to show to you as Kara, but you were enjoying it as Supergirl, weren't you? Manipulating me. She hasn't said that, but I think it will. I'm curious to see how long she keeps up with this. Maybe when Kara might not even have the opportunity to tell her. Lena might start avoiding her. It's sad because it's almost that inevitability that I think this is what's going to send her down that Luther path. This might even have her joining forces with her mom. Potentially, like I said, that depends on what happens with her mom, because her mom's just kicking it free. We'll see, she picks up Cadmus Labs again or something. I feel like she might not even join up with her mom, because her mom knew the truth. Is like, you knew and you didn't tell me. She's like, well, I want you to find out for yourself. I don't know. I'm curious to see, because obviously that's interesting thing about it, because obviously she killed Lex, so that shows that there's that side of her that's willing to do that, and that vengeful side of her, knowing the truth now, there might be some switch inside of her that might make her the true villain going forward. I don't know. Hopefully, maybe her and Kara can work things out, or maybe, you know, that Luthor side of Lena, because we've seen her good nature side so far, but, you know, obviously we saw that Luthor side when she killed her own brother, and that's going to be another thing too. Like, obviously she hated her brother, she needed to put him down to save the world from him, but that's still your brother. Like, that's why you wanted to save him from cancer, because there's some part of you that still loves him, that maybe there's some twisted logic to his situation of like, oh, you want my approval and stuff like that. And so knowing that you're the one that killed your brother, which no one else in the world knows, because everyone thinks he died when the suit exploded, she's the only one that knew about Lex, because I was like, oh, no one came to get his body. It's like, no, because no one else knew he was there. So there's that kick in the teeth, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they handle that going forward. Like I said, I think she's going to play it cool for a while, but maybe when Kara tells her the truth, she's going to act surprised, but she's so stuck on revenge that she's not going to listen to Kara. She's not going to care. She's just going to try and exact her revenge, or, you know, because obviously I don't think she's 100% decided what she's going to do, because right now she's just hurt, sad, and angry, because like I said, like, the only people in this world she can rely on, she has no one else, because she had Eve before. Eve betrayed her. Lex, he betrayed her. And now it's like everyone that's important in her life is betrayed her too. Like someone that she'd consider a friend, you know? It's kind of interesting because Brainy also told her that whole thing of kind of compartmentalizing, putting stuff in boxes. Obviously, that's something he kind of has to deal with and everything because of his side of things. Like, because him and Lena are in that same situation of they're kind of predisposed to what their ancestors, like obviously her with the Luthors, him with the whole Brainiac situation. So I'm wondering, is she going to try and compartmentalize and do that to kind of keep her cool or what? It's definitely going to be interesting to see how that story plays out. Then there's the other side of things where it turns out, holy shit, Eve was kind of double playing Lex the entire time. It wasn't just because, oh, she was so in love with Lex. It's like, no, she was sent there on purpose by some group known like Leviathan, whether it's like a full-on organization or whether Leviathan's the name of their leader. Because it's like Leviathan is everywhere. Leviathan is coming. So I think it's kind of that same mentality of like the Children of Liberty. We are all Agent Liberty or whatever. I think it's kind of that same mentality. I'm curious to see what that ends up being. Is that going to be kind of like a similar to, we might be dealing with like a secret organization, kind of similar, kind of like Cadmus Labs meet the Ninth Circle from Arrow. We might be dealing with something like that because it's kind of like a large scale organization like that. Because what's interesting, it's like Lex was meant to keep the like, because that's why Eve was like, oh, don't do that. Because it wasn't like she was just worried about like, oh, the future of the batteries we're using. It's because she was sent there for a mission and he was supposed to tip the scales, I guess, more in certain ways with his whole plans and everything. But then it's like, oh no, lo and behold, he was going against the plans and it didn't work out in the end. Lex has kind of been removed from the equation. Eve, I think we're definitely going to be seeing more Eve. But it's so interesting to see, like, it's just one thing after another where it's like, oh yeah, I like that too, that there is still more to Eve, that she isn't just a fangirl, she's a part of some organization. She wants to walk away, but it's like, oh no, you don't get to just walk away. So that's definitely something we're going to be dealing with. Before we go into even more kind of like, oh, whoa, news, let's talk about Alex and Kelly. It's like, Jesus, finally. And because, you know, Kelly's like, the fact is, I kind of enjoy this, you know, she hasn't felt like this in a long time, and Alex kisses her. I'm like, dude, finally, about time you two hooked up. I love that Brady and Neo are walking by. He's like, ignore us, we see nothing. But it's like, oh, look at them all being adorable and everything. That's awesome. It's like, especially for Alex, I think, you know, obviously next season, potentially we could see like her, obviously like, you know, obviously still dealing with more of the adoption stuff, and obviously she won't be doing it alone. Obviously she'd have her family, especially now because she remembers the entire truth. She knows Supergirl is Kara, so like that's a piece of her. I did like it when Kara kind of like pulled off her glasses and was about to, you know, go all Supergirl. She's like, I miss this, like, you know. So I like that, and you know, when it's all said and done, you know, I'm very interested to see where Alex's story takes her next season. I'm also curious to see where John's takes him, because obviously he was struggling this season, but he kind of embraced who he was 100%, being, you know, the Martian Manhunter. Obviously, I'm curious too, because like we haven't cut back to it, but obviously like the whole thing on Mars with like the White Martians and McGon, like where anything else potentially with that will go if they decide to kind of bring that back in the future. But obviously you end on a pretty big thing of like, oh yeah, the Monitor shows up and he's talking to somebody, and lo and behold, it's someone that's like a brother to John Jones. He wants to get revenge against John. So it's like, is that like his brother, or is it just kind of like, oh, a fellow Green Martian brother? I'm assuming, I don't know, because like the only family he's ever talked about was like obviously his dad and his wife and his children, his daughters. So I'm curious, because obviously there's a whole thing of like John ran away, so this particular Martian might blame him. Like where this Martian's been the entire time, who knows, especially because he was able to rescue his dad. So I was like, where was this Martian at? Was he on another Earth in particular? Maybe he's been trying, like maybe he ended up getting pushed to another Earth. What that means for John's story, especially tied up with the Monitor, especially because the Monitor at the end, he ends up getting Lex's body, and it's like, what? Because obviously if it's the Monitor, it's like obviously setting up for Crisis on Infinite Earths and stuff like that. You would assume so, but it's so interesting that literally every show so far has been ending with set up for that crossover. I mean, to be fair, it's going to be a crossover that affects, and I think it's going to change everything potentially, but to see kind of that setup like that at the end of every show like that, it's pretty interesting. I'm curious to see where, because obviously, like I said, it's going to affect the multiverse, all of the universes, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this whole situation plays out. Supergirl has been renewed for a 5th season, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this takes us going forward next season. Another thing that should be considered too is from obviously like Batwoman is starting this fall on Sundays. From what I was just reading, it seems like it's coming on first, and then Supergirl's whatever date Supergirl airs on, like whenever it premieres, is going to be airing like after Batwoman. So you always wonder about that stuff of like when shows kind of double up on days like that, like is there a particular reason why? Is there going to be some connection in that particular case, especially because Elseworlds kind of brought like like that little kinship between Batwoman and Supergirl. So I'm curious to see like whether that has any effect going forward. So that's definitely going to be interesting. But like I said, it's like, especially with all this like Crisis on Infinite Earth stuff they're setting up, especially getting Lex's body, what are you doing with that? I have no idea, because I was actually kind of surprised, because like, wow, I was kind of thinking like, oh, he'd get locked up again, and then maybe that potentially leaves room for like, oh, John Cryer to return as Lex Luthor at some point in time. But it's like, no, he's dead. But to be fair, we don't know how this whole situation is going to play out. I mean, who knows? That might not even necessarily just be an Crisis on Infinite Earth thing. That might just be a thing with Supergirl going forward. But I feel like it's all going to be like that. It's like, it's all for the Crisis crossover, and then it's like, boom, this is going to have a heavy impact on every show, like I was saying earlier. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where this takes us, because it's interesting because we haven't outright, well, because obviously we have Leviathan kind of being set up as this mysterious enemy, but beyond that, like, there's no clear cut, there's like, obviously there's a lot of open stuff to see like where that takes us potentially going forward. I also appreciate it because like, let's not forget there's stuff about Nia we got to tie up too, because that's definitely going to be interesting, her and Brainy dating, because Brainy knows a lot about her future, and obviously that was like a big hesitation for him because he doesn't want to interfere with her her timeline, but now he is because they're dating, but he knows her future too, and that's going to be a whole complicated thing too. It's so interesting because I make this whole point about Nate, how Nate's constantly dating people from different times. First, Amaya, and now Zari, different people from different points in time from him, and everything. So I'm curious to see where Brainy and Nia end up, but also like there's still stuff that has to be resolved about Nia's story in particular. Her complicated relationship with her sister is going to be interesting to see how they handle that going forward. I'm curious to see also the DEO going forward, because obviously Colonel Haley, she made the announcement of like, oh yeah, Supergirl, we doubted you, but we won't do it again. I'm wondering will she stay at the DEO or not, because obviously she was there for a particular reason to kind of keep an eye on things, but now that's done, hopefully she does stay around, because I'm sure Alex is going to, because Alex likes her and respects her, but that might be something that's taken care of in between seasons, or maybe something that's immediately taken care of at the beginning of the season, like where Alex kind of goes back to commanding things. I mean, to be fair, like maybe trying to start a family and stuff, she might want to pass the torch on to someone else. I don't know. Obviously, I'm curious to see too, like, obviously we're trying to build up to human and alien relations getting better again. What does that mean going forward? Like, will there be kind of carryover in the next season? Will we have, Clark learning about like, oh, Lex is dead after all these years, so how's he feel about that? Like I said, I'm very interested to see what season 5 has in store for us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.